Hey guys, you again with Committed. Hey, you again with Committed today, and this is unfortunately last session in 2020. And today we have Victor in studio, and my colleague will join us, I think, in a few minutes. And today we have a very special guy. I think you have already saw him on the conferences several times, and he is I'm trying to correctly pronounce Darko Mesaroš.
Yes, excellent.
Yes. Okay, Darko, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you very much, Victor, for having me here. I'm pretty good. Pretty warm. It's relatively cold now. Actually, currently at home my mom's house in Serbia. I live in Berlin, but I came home for Friday, so thankfully I'm fine. So yeah, I had a
So you left work and Amazon and come back to the mother's home? Okay. Your profile says that you speak four, or probably I'm mistaken, 5 languages.
Well, okay, so my native language is Serbian, right? I speak English, as you can notice, but I used to live in Czech Republic for like 2 years-ish, a bit more. So I can speak Czech and Slovak, which are very similar but a bit different languages. I can speak a bit of Hungarian as well, because I come from the part of Serbia where we have a lot of Hungarians, and hence I am also in one part Hungarian. And if you want to take it even further, I can speak Croatian, I can speak Bosnian, and I can speak Montenegrin, which are all in essence the same language, but we like to call them different. But yeah.
So I know that you have a very interesting story. So you are currently working in Berlin. Now you come back to your motherland. So actually, where you was born and why you are changing countries?
So I come from Serbia, a small town called Subotica up north near the Hungarian border. And I was born here, raised and all that stuff. And somewhere in 2012, I've decided, well, actually, I got an opportunity to work for a company in the Czech Republic. Before that, I was working a bunch of jobs in Serbia, in my hometown, and some other cities as well. I was always an IT person, so I kind of brunt of my work was always like with computers. I was that kid in high school who would fix your computers and reinstall Windows and all that jazz. I've actually, even for like one of my first paid jobs, I've driven around the van. Like that was kind of a thing I did. But then in 2012, I decided to move away. Well, I got a job in Czech Republic, so I moved to Czech Republic. I was there for 2 years. One of the things I like to say is that in the last 7 years, I've changed 5 countries. So I moved from Serbia to Czech Republic, then to Malta, then from Malta to Ireland, and then from Ireland, I live now in Germany. So for the last 3 years, I'm in Germany. So that's next to Serbia, the longest place I've been at. So it's been a ride, I must say.
Okay, it's quite interesting. I also suppose that you are also interesting to change not only countries but also technologies. I know that you started as a Microsoft guy, so you have several probably already expired Microsoft certification. So what's the story? Why you change it?
Okay,
change
so
I would say the technology.
so I've started off, as I said, like as a kid fixing your computer, right? So, and one of the jobs I actually worked at, one of my managers, if you like to call them, they actually asked me to, hey, so people can see that you're doing something, you should carry around a screwdriver with you, right? Because you're the person that fixes computers here. So I was that person who would fix computers. And back at that time, the most computers I ever worked with were Windows, right? Not a lot of people had Macs where I come from. Not a lot of people used Linux as well. So Windows was kind of the default. And that's how I started. One of the first things that I've done in my life was I've asked my mom, and I was like 17 at the time. I asked my mom, hey mom, I heard this is good. Can you pay for that? And that was certification for Microsoft. So I did like the Microsoft Certified Enterprise IT Administrator and Microsoft Certified Server Administrator and Enterprise Administrator. Yes, those are the two certificates that I've started off with. So I basically went into the world of Microsoft, of domain controllers, of application servers, of terminal servers, of IIS, and all of those things, because that was kind of the closest thing to me. I had my experience with Linux, I had my experience with some Unix as well, but it was so little of that I really couldn't, advance in that a bit. So, and then for most of my career, actually, initially, I was purely focused on Windows, just doing Windows, and I to this day I think Windows is great. But then something happened to me. Somebody showed me that you don't have to use this anymore. You can do all things with the command line. You can do all things from a text editor. And I kind of became a really big fan of that. So, and you will see on a lot of the things that I do online and my presentations, you will see a lot of Vim and a lot of terminal with me, because I just love that. I am a big fan of that. And this is where Linux came into my life in that sense. Like, oh, I like it. I like that you can do this all through the command line. That being said, Microsoft or Windows at that point came out with PowerShell. And PowerShell, I thought it was the best thing ever, right? And I still do believe PowerShell is just amazing in the Windows world. And I've started using it as a lot. And like basically for all the things I would be doing PowerShell. And then kind of the Linux bug caught me in seeing that I can do, anything I want with Linux, with a little asterisk, almost anything that I want with Linux. I kind of slowly transitioned into focusing myself a bit more on Linux rather than just purely doing Windows. So, but yeah.
Okay. Clear. It was like a provocation from my side, but okay. Okay. My colleague
I respect the both. I respect the both, but I just enjoy the keyboard a bit more.
I understand. So my colleague Anton already joined the stream. So, Anton.
Sorry, I joined a little bit late, but yeah, it was really great. I can see you now. To be over here. Yeah.
I think, yeah, okay. I think you need to. I have a problem hearing you. So can you just please increase your audio a bit? It's very quiet compared to Victor. I can hear Victor fine, but
how does it sound now?
a bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want just to stay in it. Okay. So
You can always yell.
So right now, AWS reInvent is running, and
Yes.
a lot of cool features have been announced. And one of those was an AWS Lookout. So it's something that might be very convenient for DevOps as well to analyze logs, maybe some other metrics. So, but yeah, they have announced it, but they did not really show how to actually use it and how we can benefit it.
Okay.
So could you elaborate a little bit more on that? At least maybe potential use cases.
And here's the thing I always like to stress to people, especially people who don't come from AWS. Like, I've found out about Lookout the same time you did. So I unfortunately didn't have the chance. And besides just a few services that I work on AWS, I help with like writing a blog post or preparing a talk. I usually don't know things that are being launched. So when I watch the keynote, I'm like, what's going to come out? So when it comes to Lookout, I unfortunately don't have a lot of input on that, but it is a tool that can help you a lot when it comes to observability. And observability is very important, especially in the world of the cloud. So to get more information on Lookout, I would suggest you check out my social media somewhere. I don't have anything here, but check out my social media channels somewhere. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, on YouTube, and all this stuff. I will be posting videos and blogs about new releases in the coming weeks. So I wish I could share more right now, but I really don't know. I can read the blog post now and we can discuss it, but unfortunately, I have no more information on Lookout now.
Okay, but in general, just to think about it. So how can DevOps benefit from machine learning and, AI, because it sounds really popular now and it's hyping all of them. Yeah.
So one of the things that when we talk about DevOps, right? And DevOps is this very broad term. There is no DevOps.exe. There's no DevOps. There's not a box with DevOps, or if it was, it would just be a box full of YAML, I guess, right? It's DevOps is not a single thing, but DevOps is just a set of practices, tools, and cultural shifts that you do when it comes to running your business/application or workload. How machine learning and all of these modern fancy things can help when it comes to DevOps types of things, and they can mostly help with observability. They can help because we don't see all the things. We sometimes struggle with seeing the correct things. I joked about this. You cannot see the tree from the forest, and that's the same thing in DevOps. When you have this massive environment, you have all of these different things, all of these multiple serverless Lambda functions, containers, applications, servers, whatnot. And they're all throwing information at you, and you get overwhelmed with this thing. And we as people are really good at seeing patterns, but sometimes we're not good at predicting them. So what machine learning can help us with tools such as DevOps Guru, for example, that it can help potentially detect some issues we might have, preempt some things that may happen, or detect that, hey, maybe you're not utilizing your servers enough, or you're overutilizing your things. So I think machine learning just helps us here to analyze things as we go along and give us a much, much clearer picture in what we need to see.
Darko, what do you think about a real state of the art in the machine learning? I'm not talking about the quite technical things, but from my perspective, machine learning started as a big hype. Now it's not so, I would say, hypeable, and in the same time, the interest to the machine learning is still hot, but a little bit down because it's not easy. It's not always. I'm just trying to say it's very simple to build a small model, train it, and do some kind of tricky things. But when it comes to do the real interesting things, I suppose it become very hard. What do you think?
So machine learning in itself exists for a long time. I believe I read somewhere that machine learning exists like from the middle of the 20th century, the concept of machine learning and some capabilities of it. And when you say this machine learning, there's this hype that happens. And I remember a few years ago, everything was ML. ML this, AI ML that, right? It was just that. Now, one of the things that has happened is in between the big old hype, like when somebody says, hey, this is machine learning and it can do everything in the world, kind of reality hit in where people saw that, okay, it takes effort. It takes effort to do X and Y. It takes some knowledge. And also, on the other side of the coin, what happened as well is that people who had ideas who seen ML, like, oh, machine learning, right? Oh, it's so amazing. It does all these things. But they don't need all of those things. One of the key problems people make when they approach machine learning is like, do I have a business model that can benefit from machine learning, right? And usually they don't have it. Or they don't know how to use machine learning, but they want to use it just for the use case. And in many cases, the simple pre-trained existing services out there, like, I don't know, AWS, Amazon Recognition, or Transcribe, or Poly, or all those machine learning services that are just basically pre-trained machine learning APIs can help you achieve what you really want. Hence, a lot of people went from this massive hype on machine learning to like, oh, I can just plug this in and use it, right? But at the same time, I am really certain that machine learning will make massive changes into the way we do things. we can always talk about the cloud and how we have, SageMaker on AWS, and we have these deep learning AMIs and instances and infrastructure that does all of these things for us. But if you look at your home, if you look at your gaming computer at home, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, it can use machine learning to actually reduce the amount of pixels it needs to render and just upscale it using that machine learning, right? It can make video games optimized. If you have an NVIDIA card and use like the RTX, RTX noise cancellation, you can literally bang on your table while you speak, and machine learning will take that out of the loop. So I think there's a lot of things that machine learning will touch and impact. We just don't know what yet. So I wouldn't say it's a hype. I wouldn't say it's going to go away. It's not something that's going to, it's fun and just nobody starts using it anymore. I think it's here to stay. Just the way we talk about it and the way we approach it is going to be a bit different.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I will try to continue on the recent announcements, actually. So maybe...
Let me pull out my blog post.
Well, recently AWS Proton was announced, and some folk already named it as a result of vicious connection between Kubernetes and Jenkins as a result. So does it sound like that? Or we DevOps should fear that it comes and we should just seek for another job now?
No. So
not that terrible, isn't it?
No. Well, so when it comes to AWS Proton is this service that automates the management of deployments, right? Think of it as this way. So you're a DevOps engineer, whatever that is. Like, nobody knows what a DevOps engineer is. We like to call ourselves DevOps engineers, but you're a person that knows how to script and you know how to run a cloud. So that's much, I would say that calling yourself a DevOps engineer is selling yourself short. You are an infrastructure engineer. You do a lot more things than just DevOps. So you, as a DevOps/infrastructure engineer, can make infrastructure. You can make these CloudFormation templates. You can make these Terraform templates, whatever, right? You can make those things. You can design infrastructure and give your team, your other teams, team members, development teams, the ability to actually use those building blocks. So think of it as I will build a template that will provision a database, a bunch of EC2 instances, a Lambda function, a whole lot of different things that my development team needs to, number one, run their application, number two, run a test environment or whatever. And I can give them to this in a relatively self-service approach. But what's different with Proton is that Proton, at the end of the day, gives you as an infrastructure engineer or the operations team the ability to actually update those stacks on the developer side. So it's not like I've written your template, here's an access to a GitHub repository and launch it. Because when you make a change, they might not necessarily update it. So giving this as a self-service model and then being able to add new features or upgrade your stacks as you keep on updating them is one of the benefits of Proton. Now, again, it's still in pre-release. It's still in beta, I believe. I have not had a chance to play with it. So this is something I'm gonna dive deep into it because I'm a big fan of infrastructure provisioning, of infrastructure as code, and all those pipelines and multiple stages and whatever we want. But to answer your question, I don't think this is taking the job of DevOps engineers, because at the end of the day, you're not sitting next to the pipeline and just going through the pipeline. You always have to deal with somebody asking you, hey, this CloudFormation template you gave me just doesn't work. Can you make it better? With this way, you can just make it self-service.
Yeah, well, that announcement, that demo, actually, that sounds like it's, okay, that's the end of the world. People will not need it anymore. No. So, yeah.
I don't think, people said for a lot of things like, oh, when this gets launched, oh, you're never going to need this and that. Trust me, there's always going to be a place for people. And I grew up screwing machines, right? And installing servers, and now there's the cloud. And one of my previous jobs was basically, I was a server provisioning administrator in one of the previous companies. And my job was to, I would get a server that was in a rack somewhere away. And they would tell me, hey, Darko, take this server, or basically they would give me 500 of those servers and say, install Linux on it and configure it. And that took like 6 months, right? I would basically take the lovely Java-based remote administration utility, log into it,
I can feel your pain.
mount the ISO.
Sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
I can mount the exactly mount the ISO, run the installer, set up the network, set up backup, set up all the software, user access, all while I couldn't use SSH. Right? It was horrible. And now the world has changed. We're living in the cloud. We're all doing clouds. And I'm still provisioning servers, but I'm just writing them through CloudFormation. So there's always going to be a better thing for you to do as your job changes, hopefully. So I don't see this as a thing that will rip away the DevOps engineers' jobs. So yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll pass my next question to Victor.
Okay.
Okay, I have, I would say, not so easy question for you.
Okay.
We already have interview with Baruch Sadagursky. You probably know this guy.
Uh-huh. Yes, I do.
He is also developer's advocate. But you are senior
Okay.
developer advocate, but he is not.
Okay.
So what's the difference between senior advocate and just advocate?
So Baruch needs to grow a bigger beard, and and as soon as you get some gray, and that's when you. And I don't know. Like I think my title, senior developer advocate, is just a semantic thing at AWS. I think when it comes to being a senior versus non-senior is just how much experience you have talking. And I believe that Baruch has a lot of experience talking. I've seen his wonderful, colorful speeches out there, and in my eyes, he is a senior, if you would like to call it a principal developer advocate. I think it's he just maybe needs to lose a bit more hair and just grow a bit of beard, and that's all he needs.
Okay, it's quite clear. But one more question. We already have opinion from Baruch, actually, what developer advocating is about. So,
Okay.
What do you think about developer advocation? Developers are weak, or just they why developers need advocation?
There's a very clear message to that. When you think about the developers, and I think about us, you developers a lot. You use all the services coming from a company that I work for, right? I work for Amazon Web Services, and you keep on using EC2s, Lambdas, you keep using S3s and buckets and all those stuff, right? Sometimes, especially at a company at this size, and mind you, AWS is massive, it can seem that you are talking to a wall, right? If there was no developer advocates here to be your voice, you may think that you are talking or you're throwing your problems into Twitter or the wall or a bucket, right? But now with developer advocacy, and this goes for every big company, I'm talking about all the big cloud vendors out there, I'm talking other SaaS providers, other companies that are providing services that developers use. And developer advocates, in this essence, should not be just the people who come on stage and talk about, oh, check out my amazing technology, check out what this can do, check out what that can do. No, we should be your voice within our companies. So one part that I do, and it's kind of not as visible as this, is I get feedback from people. People come to me and say, hey, Darko, you know that feature that came out with CloudFormation? Oh, God, it's horrible. It doesn't work. And then I take that feedback and I know who to pull at AWS and I tell them, hey, this is direct feedback from a customer. Can we address this right now? So that's one of the things I'm trying to do. That's one part of the developer advocacy part. And besides that, besides just being that voice, you also are this voice of the community, because developers are great, developers are amazing, and the entire community around developers is also great. I'm trying to, grow this community to help people who do the similar technology that I work with can find other people who do the same thing, so they can grow professionally and with skills.
Okay, one more small provocation.
Ooh.
We see you on the conferences a lot of times, and sometimes it seems like your job is just traveling and speaking on the conferences, talking to the people, and actually doing nothing more, and receiving the really good salary on the Amazon, right?
Okay.
Or not?
Not right. You think it? Did you really think that I was? it was all jet set, me in private air jets and just flying from a conference and talking, get money. Oh boy. There's so much thing that happens on and behind the scenes. Of course, some things I cannot share, some things I can, but there's a lot of paperwork. A lot of things I have to do is paperwork. At Amazon, we are very proud of being people who write things down. So besides, between me talking at events and traveling and doing all of that stuff, I have to, write narratives. I have to think about new things I'm going to introduce. We're not static. We're always moving forward. How can I help the communities around me? How can I get this developer's feedback into the right set of hands? Who do I need to poke? Who do I need to do that? So I've spent numerous times on airports and in hotels just literally working. I had this one example earlier this year, so before this entire Corona thing happened. I had 6 flights in 3 days. And I literally went to a place to deliver like a recap of a reInvent, and I landed. I had like an hour and a half between the talk and me landing, me getting to the hotel. And I went to the hotel. I needed to finish this thing I'm doing. Finished it, went to the recap, delivered the recap, spent some time with the community, spoke with the local communities, amazing, went back to the hotel, picked up my bag, and went back to the airport. So yeah, that happens as well. So it's not all airplanes and champagne and all that stuff. So, but it is a lot of blog writing, a lot of content creation. Those PowerPoint presentations do not create themselves. The demos also do not create themselves. So, and to stay relevant, and as I'm an engineer, I'm not a person who was born to talk on stage. I'm a person who fixes computers, right? I spend a lot of time researching. So, hey, we're talking about Proton. I need to see what Proton is. I need to dig deep into it and trying to find out how does it work and how does this benefit the folks I'm talking to. So,
you just destroyed very beautiful illusion.
Did I? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but we fly economy class. So I fly Ryanair and EasyJet and all that stuff. So don't think I'm.
You should say sorry, guys. I just destroyed your illusion.
Yeah, I just popped the bubble. But one glamorous part about this entire thing is that I get to speak to folks like you, right? The people, the developers, and I'm fortunate in that sense that I can actually meet different developers, different community members from different countries, in Europe, around the world as well. So, give me a second. I just need to take a glass of water because I'm kind of losing my voice. So I'll just slide back while you watch my monitor.
No problem.
I'm still listening to you. And I'm back. Hello. I did not get a proper glass of water. Somebody's asking for a translation.
Now it's completely clear that this is live session.
Yes, exactly. So I've had a soda drink, and that's not a good thing for your voice,
It's
especially
really
if you're
soda?
loud. It's like a sugarless energy drink from Serbia. Not the best thing in the world, but yeah.
Small taste of home. Small
A little
taste
taste
of
of home,
yeah.
and I have some warm water. So this is warm water, but it'll do. Yeah. So where were we? Yes, glamour, jets, flying around the world, meeting famous people. Well, that's also a thing. I get to meet famous people. When I say famous people, I mean people famous in our world. I get to meet amazing speakers. I get to meet folks who talk about technology with a lot of passion. So I get to learn from them as well.
Okay, so thank you for the.
Thank you very much for the honesty, right?
So that monitor behind you, is that you're collecting some old stuff?
Oh.
Some old computers, perhaps? Yep.
So I'm a big fan of old computers. I have a massive, quote unquote, massive collection of old. I basically go through all the flea markets and try to buy retro computers. So this monitor here is my first ever PC monitor. So that monitor is the one I've gotten it in 2001 for this PC. So this here is my 486 DX4 100 megahertz Windows 95 PC. Now, it's currently not in function. It works, but it's not turned on. But this monitor here is connected to this laptop, and that laptop is a 386 laptop. So it has 4 megabytes of RAM. It has, I think, 30-something megahertz CPU, runs Windows 3.1. And yeah, so it works. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Victor,
yes.
Just to kind of, don't think I'm against Windows and Microsoft? I have a tattoo on my hand, as you can see. See Windows, right?
I see Linux.
Well, you can see here, root at localhost. So I'm devoted.
You probably should
I have a
also have something like Apple.
I guess root at localhost will work for Apple for the time being, as they're running Darwin underneath. So yeah, it is okay. But yeah,
So,
I may be doing a Commodore 64 or something, because again, I'm a fan of that as well. And here is my first ever computer. This thing here is my first ever Commodore 64. It still works.
Legendary item.
Yes. A question. Mr. Darko. Oh, don't call me Mr.
Mrs.
So let's read the question. Mrs. My father is a Mr. I am Darko. Darko, as an engineer turned traveler and content creator, what do you think an up-and-coming engineer should focus on when starting with AWS or DevOps? Thanks. Okay. The question, what to focus on when starting with AWS, that's a very wide thing to think about, because AWS and the cloud is just really, really big. But when it comes to DevOps, one of the things that I would like everybody who's starting off with DevOps to focus on is understanding how you do things through code. So writing infrastructure as code is key importance. Doing configuration management through code is also important. Doing audits and compliance through code is also great, because if you combine the cloud and DevOps, or things we try to automate, you have to do it through code. So no matter what you're doing, get comfortable with one of the platforms, one of the frameworks. It doesn't have to be CloudFormation. It can be Terraform, it can be Pulumi, it can be CDK, it can be Troposphere, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, whatever floats your boat. But this is something that you should focus on, because one thing about being a great engineer, a DevOps engineer in the cloud world, is you to be able to do things at scale very fast and safely. One of the things you don't want to do, especially in the cloud, because hey, you can have 1,000 servers, and if you make automation, of course, automation is great. But if you do automation through badly written code or no code at all, you can screw things up at scale as well. So that's very important to do.
Darko, I would say Amazon, it's really big company, and I think that there are a lot of really big parts. For example, one is software, one is, I think, something around retail, and I think all these parts has its own different cultures. I heard a lot of complaints about the Amazon's small salaries for the workers who work on the facilities and things like that. But I never heard complaints about division works on the software. What can you say about the general culture
at Amazon?
At Amazon? It's friendly, it's competitive, it's what can you say? The three most important characteristics.
Absolutely. So, in my experience, I've been working with Amazon for the last 5 years, which is a lot in Amazon years. I know I've started in like one of the teams where when I started 3 years ago, it was like 20 people in total. Now there's over 250 people in that team. So, in that set of teams. So we grow pretty fast. And when it comes to Amazon and the top three or top whatever things we lead ourselves by, from a cultural perspective, we have these things called leadership principles. Leadership principles are the 14 principles we do anything by. And one of the things that's amazing about AWS or Amazon in general, if anything that you're doing is in line with those things, it's great, right? So from customer obsession to bias for action to invent and simplify. So all of those things, and they're public. You can actually read them on our websites, and anybody who's ever been interviewed for Amazon will know those things. That those are some of the things that we ask of people before they join at AWS or Amazon to be familiar with those things. So if you would ask me, is the culture at Amazon competitive? No, not in that sense, right? It's very open. I think all my jobs at Amazon that I've had in the last 5 years are definitely the best jobs I've ever had. I feel very, very empowered here. I can express myself. I can do what I think is best for the customer because, leadership principle number one is customer obsession. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is focused towards the customer. Now, will that be by saying, hey, you should not do this or do this, or hey, we want to reduce the cost of the service and put that cost back to the customer? Yeah, but always has to be customer focused. I would say that's the biggest one, along with some other ones. I wouldn't be able to kind of rank them all, but the first one is customer obsession, and everything comes after that.
Okay, the next one.
The next one.
Customer obsession. It's quite obvious.
Yep.
Sorry, but probably two or three more. I'm just wondering the main I would say points when we are talking about the Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to me working at Amazon, and now leadership principles are really
especially you internal things.
Okay. Yeah, leadership principles when it comes to Amazon really depend on where you work. Okay. Now, in my case, I would say that when it comes to my second most important leadership principle is be right a lot, which basically this is where you make sure the leaders, you or anybody else working at Amazon, is right. When you're talking about something, you want to be right about that. You don't want to, bang your belly and just say something out of your mouth and you're not sure about it, right? So when you do things, you want to make sure you do them right, and you do not lose the trust from somebody else listening to you. So that's why I didn't say anything about Lookout, because I really don't know. I could have went like, Lookout is this amazing feature that logging and DevOps, I don't know. I really don't know, and I want to be right. So
okay.
If I would go further, the next leadership principle I would say would be earning trust. Earning trust is very important. Hence, I think that one of the important parts of a developer advocate is earning trust. I want to be this friendly face you talk to when you have a problem with AWS, and I will be the first one to criticize AWS. I am not beyond that. I'm not going to be here saying, every service that AWS releases is perfect, and it's not. And I'm going to be that voice. So with those kind of things, I want to earn the communities and the developers' trust, by being that person. So earning trust is very important as well. And let me add another one, as I would think if I would try to rank them, is insist on the highest standards. So anything I do, and this is kind of a personal / business thing, anything I do, I want to make it as good as possible. Now, what could that be? I could have spoken to you through my headphones through this microphone, but I'm using a better microphone, so it would be a better experience for you and for your customers. I could have sit in my dark room, but I have lights. I could have not prepared for this talk. Maybe I didn't, but I've actually prepared to answer your questions. I came 20 minutes early. So insisting on a high standards just so I can, again, at the end of the day, be customer obsessed. And in this case, my customers are you. Two of you guys, and everybody else listening to me right now is my customer. So I want to make sure that you get kind of the best things out there when you gave me your time right now to listen to my big bald head talk about DevOps and AWS and whatever. So yeah.
Okay, quite honest. Thank you. Was it hard to pass an interview to the Amazon?
So yeah. I would say it was compared to some previous interviews I did. So, I mean, this is not a secret how Amazon or AWS does loops or interviews. My other interviews in the past were usually like you have a phone conversation with somebody, and that's fine. Then you usually come on into the company and speak with 1, 2, or 3 people, right? And that's it. When it comes to Amazon, we usually have 2 phone interviews, and then 4 or 5 in-person interviews. So there's a lot of things that you have to go through to get through that. So I did my interview back in 2015, yes, December 2015. And I remember I was interviewed 7 times. So 2 times over the phone and 5 times in person. It was exhausting. It was challenging, but nobody would ever ask you a question to kind of just prove that you're wrong. Nobody's looking for you not knowing things. People are actually actively looking for you to give the correct answer. And most of the answers, of course, there are some technical questions because, hey, you're an engineer, you have to know things. But most of the questions are actually around those leadership principles, and they're scenario-based. They're like, ask you a question. So tell me about when you did X or Y, or how did you act in situation Y or Z? And this is where we get the feeling, is this person the right cultural fit for Amazon? Can this person be part of AWS? Can this person contribute or give back to the customers we work with in the same level? So those are the things. I would say it was difficult because there was a lot of it, but overall it was a very positive experience. And as I said, customer obsession. When you're interviewing somebody, the person you're interviewing is your customer. You want to make sure that that person who is under interview also has a good experience about all of the things. So I can say pretty positive.
Okay, and probably the last questions about the interviews. There are a lot of giants on the market, and all of them seems and sounds bright. They're doing a lot of interesting things. So what could be the reason for the good developer to choose exactly Amazon?
Well, so one of the things that we're really proud about when we talk about Amazon is that Amazon has this amazing pace of innovation. So, which can be, especially reInvent, right? We launched so many services out there, I think too much in my personal opinion, but we keep on, pushing the envelope. We keep on getting better and better things out there. So as a developer, you get to work in these small teams. And if you ever heard the concept of a 2-pizza team, that's something we heavily work on at AWS and Amazon in general. You will not see a big team at Amazon. And as a developer, when you join Amazon, you have this small group of people that you're going to build amazing things in. So things from S3, the bucket, that's an amazing service. That's a very competent and amazing service built by engineers, to your Lambda functions, to our, what are they called? What's the name of the service? The thing with satellites, ground station, yes, satellite things, 5G, all of those things. So I think the opportunity for developers at Amazon is just amazing. And what we encourage people is that if you've been for a while in your role at Amazon and you're like, I want to do something else. Moving within Amazon is just very much a thing. I've changed 4 roles within Amazon in my last 5 years. 4 roles. Yeah. So I've been a support engineer. I was the person who answered the phones and chats when you had problems with AWS. I was a solution architect who would work directly with customers and help them build their infrastructure on AWS. I was a specialist solution architect for a short time. And I now get to scream at the camera and talk to folks. So it is very much possible to build your career at Amazon, and at the same time work at some really cool technology.
Okay, Anton.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Back to some technical questions, perhaps. So there's a recently announced AWS Copilot. So I watched the demo, and I just realized that it just looked a little bit familiar for Elastic Beanstalk. So, is it something like similar to Beanstalk in the concept, or just mixed?
I don't think it is. Wait a second, let me get a second. as we're doing this, I'm Googling what AWS Copilot exactly is because I don't know all the services at AWS. So Copilot is, there's the difference. Elastic Beanstalk is a service that enables you to run your application on AWS. And in most times, Elastic Beanstalk, well, all the times, Elastic Beanstalk actually provisions EC2 instances for you. So they run on servers. Now you can run containers on Elastic Beanstalk. You don't have to run containers. You can run your Ruby applications, your Python applications, your PHP applications in different types of stacks on Elastic Beanstalk. And Elastic Beanstalk actually maintains and automates the operations such as patching, recycling, creating of auto-scaling things. So it does all of those little things for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You can literally just pass it on. Here's my zip file with my application, right? When it comes to Copilot, let me see what Copilot is. Oh, Copilot is actually for deployments on ECS, right? So it's specifically targeted to ECS or Elastic Container Service, right? So it's focused on your container deployments on an ECS cluster. So, and that's as much about as I know about Copilot. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot more about it. I'm not a containers person, so, but yeah.
Oh, aren't you? Oh.
No, I'm a person who likes. I come from a tradition. Did I show you my screwdriver? I do cook servers, so I came from a traditional. Let's install things on bare metal stuff, and I'm a fan of containers. I think they're amazing and serverless, and I love that, and I do a lot of things with this. But Copilot is not something I can talk with full confidence about. So how did I say? I forgot the leadership principle. Not insist on the high standards. It's be right a lot. Yes, be right a lot. And I cannot be right a lot. Be right a lot with Copilot, unfortunately. I don't want to get people to get the wrong impression about the service. But yeah.
Okay, then maybe something more generic. So GitOps approach, something that probably.
Yes.
Sort of like revolutionizing whole like idea of how everything should be managed, especially infrastructure itself.
So you take this and you throw it away. And everything you do through your keyboard, through your text editor. And the whole just to explain what GitOps means. And GitOps is this there's no strict definition what GitOps is. We all think to know what GitOps is, but in essence, GitOps boils down to the fact that any change, be that operations, be that deployment, be that infrastructure provisioning, needs to happen through a Git push, right? So no more clicking, no more manual deployments with the command line even. Any change you make needs to be done through a code commit. So not code commit the service, but code commit as committing code to a repository. Now, most of the times it's Git, but it can be SVN as well, right? I'm not judging. Using basically anything has to be codified. Hence my recommendation that new DevOps engineers learn how to do things through code, because GitOps is this thing that's gonna help. That's how things move forward. Because how do you do things at scale, right? You have to do things through code. So I think GitOps or whatever you would like to put in the GitOps bucket is the thing that's very important, and everybody should strive to do that. When you need to automate things. You need to do it safely, and with the cloud, you need to do it at scale. So treat your infrastructure code, your configuration code, your operation runbooks, treat those things as any other piece of code, test it, put it in a repository, create pipelines for it, and all of those things. So I would say that GitOps or anything around GitOps is very important.
Is there some new perhaps utilities or tools or something else that might help actually with using this approach natively, like without additional efforts, so to say? For example, right now it seems like we need to actually create manually, not manually, I mean a lot of scripting should be involved right now to actually just apply your CloudFormation templates, for example, to generate those and then run some deployments. And a lot of scripting should be added.
So and that's kind of the whole point, right? So with scripting or with automation, you kind of make things more safer and more repeatable and predictable. So you have to do some coding, and hence that's why I said you should do it. But I think very important about this thing is choosing the right tools. So using the correct pipelines to do your job, because like you have so many options out there, from Travis CI to AWS Code Pipeline to Jenkins to Circle CI. All of those things can help you actually move your piece of code and do automation at the end, right? So is there a single tool that I can say, oh, install this and this will solve all of your problems? Yes, Vim, but I mean, there's a lot more things around those things that can help you. Again, I wish I had a little sign that says it depends, but yeah, it really depends on what you're doing. But I would say scripting is important, but when I say scripting, I don't necessarily mean writing bash scripts or PowerShell scripts, or even doing something like with Python, as sometimes some quite simple checks or single commands should be sufficient to test your code, for example. And where you're building your infrastructure, you can do it, of course, in CloudFormation, you can do it in CDK, you can do it in Terraform, in Pulumi, in SAM. And those things make stuff a lot easier. Maybe not initially when you first look at it, but down the line, you'll thank me in the morning.
Speaking actually of scripting, what's the language of your preference?
It's Python. Not because Python is the best language out there. No, that's the one I've started with. Well, actually, I started with Batch. With Windows on Back, right? I did some VBScript initially, but I do Python now because I just find Python very comfortable. I do a lot of TypeScript since recently, but I've done most of my complex things in either Python or PowerShell. So. Hence the two tattoos, right? So
It works together.
yeah, it's multi-platform, but yeah, I don't know. Like the first language I've learned was C, and if I could do everything in C, I would do it in C. But yeah.
Today I'm doing a lot of provocations, so it's pretty
Ooh.
interesting. You probably agree with me that when DevOps was born, it was about the methodology.
Yes.
It was not about tools. And today
Yes,
DevOps also not about tools. Actually, it's about methodology. In the main idea, and a lot of people talking about the DevOps like an upgrade to the Agile, because Agile was about flexibility. Now DevOps about the speed, about the velocity, and about the pipelines, about connection between departments and doing things fast.
Okay.
Can you honestly answer me? Do you have implemented DevOps methodology in Amazon? Is it really works?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yes?
absolutely. So
It works?
Yes. Yeah, it works. So I'll give you an example. While working in premium support, so I was a support engineer that was supporting customers, right? Customers were having a problem with a specific service, and I made a fix. Like I made a little script that helps them do what they want, right? And I came to I've done this a few times, and then the service team from that service, which is a small team, right? Again, we go by 2 pizza teams. They came out to me like, "Hey, Darko, can you implement this fix into the product?" I'm like, "I have the code, I guess." And like, "Okay, cool. Let us give you Git access and go for it." And they gave me Git access to the repository of that service. They gave me all the tools, all the training I need. Or the training, when I say training, I mean how to access those services, because it's Amazon. There's a lot of things you need to learn. So I got all that. I've pulled the repo, implemented my code change. It's just a couple of Java files I need to do, and some tests as well. I've written some tests. I've written some Java files, committed that, had somebody from that team review my code and says like, "Yep, this looks good." Bam, goes to test environments, well, to the build and the stage, and then multiple beta, gamma, and delta, and then finally went to production. So within like a day or two, the code that I written went to production, right? With all the bells and whistles, so there was no hard gates or approvals or something very complex. I was able to get customer value in a relatively small amount of time, thanks to applying those DevOps methodologies and everything around them. So tooling and the way we do things, the small teams, small lines of communication. So I had firsthand experience in that, and I was surprised because I worked in a company where the way you would deliver software was like, every 3 months, somebody would come with a flash disk and say, hey, this is the latest version of our software. Can you deploy this? And then you do, and it fails, and you have to roll back, and you have to wait another 3 months. In Amazon, it doesn't work that way. So, of course, there's all of these automated checks and tests in the between, so you don't break production, right? Of course. So hence, I could have not have written bad code to break the service because this DevOps tool chain or everything around it just prevents me from doing so. Hence, the safety in automation.
Okay, I probably should believe you that you have already implemented DevOps in Amazon. But one more question: what kind of agile framework you are using in Amazon? If this is not, I would say, secret, probably Scrum or something around Scrum.
I wouldn't know how to say. I don't know. Like I think it's a mix of things. I don't think it's a very clear definition that this is the way we do it. Again, I was not part of a developer team, so I don't know the deeper insights of how they do specific things in regards to agile methodologies. But I wouldn't be able to give you a concrete answer on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Anton.
So my next question, so you said that you are not really fond about containers, but what about Kubernetes itself?
I'm that person you talk to that has never run Kubernetes.
How could this be? Even
I don't know.
CDK for Kubernetes was recently announced somehow. And
exactly.
You should be aware of that at least and have some experience with this.
Well, somehow my personal static website doesn't need to run in a Kubernetes cluster. I don't know how, but so I've never played around with Kubernetes per se. I've brushed with it. Like I worked with people who worked with Kubernetes, and I know that you do things in pods and applications, and that's literally the limit of my knowledge when it comes to Kubernetes. Most of my container deployments and anything I did in my life was focused around ECS because ECS was really sufficient, whatever we needed to do. So the AWS Elastic Container Service. So I never had the need to actually do things on Kubernetes. So the only thing I can say about it is that it's amazing that it's this open source standard and framework or orchestrator how to do containers. And I like the fact that it's available to everybody anywhere. That you can run it on AWS, you can run it on Azure, you can run it on GCP, you can run it on your Raspberry Pis, and you can do it anywhere. It's amazing, but that's literally the scope of my knowledge on Kubernetes.
Well, I'm not sure if it's right to ask about recently announced. Well, again, EKSD distribute. What was it? Basically
EKS distro.
that was
EKS distro,
distro or something.
Yeah.
So
well, the EKS distro.
Is it to host your on-premises, your cluster, basically to extend it?
Yeah. So this is kind of a thing that so we released on last week on the keynote. We talked about ECS Anywhere and EKS Anywhere, and this is just the ability that you can run your Kubernetes cluster and your ECS clusters anywhere, right? You can run them on your Raspberry Pis. You can run them on your cloud. You can run them in a different cloud. So it gives you the ability to do this across the palette or the spectrum of infrastructures. And why is this important? You have to understand that a lot of customers who are not born in the cloud are at some point running a hybrid environment, right? So even if you run everything right now in the cloud, at one point during your migration, you were 1 foot on premises, 1 foot in the cloud. So I think just the ability that you have during your migration process, or you wish to use the resources you have in your data center, doing this with Kubernetes and ECS, I think that's a perfect opportunity for such a thing. And regarding the EKS distro, basically it's the AWS version of Kubernetes, or fully tuned for AWS with all the bells and whistles that you need to integrate it fully with AWS.
So just plug and play, so to say.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, there's another question. May I read this question? I have not seen it come up from Hugo. Thank you. Oh, loving the museum. Thank you very much. I have more stuff at home. Do you felt any difference in EU countries while traveling? I'm trying my luck in Amazon Dublin. Any tips? First of all, good luck with Dublin. I used to work in Amazon Dublin. Amazing place to work. Amazing people. Tips: read the leadership principles and be very honest. And that's all you need to do. When it comes to differences in EU countries while traveling, oh, of course. I mean, I come from Eastern Europe. I know what it is to travel and how to go about in Eastern Europe, and it's a much different approach than you would travel in the UK or in Ireland. So there's differences. There's logistical differences. There's infrastructure differences as well. But overall, I've never had a bad situation anywhere. So I do enjoy my travels. One of the things I try to do is if I go to a country and I have time, I usually like to maybe take a rental car and just drive somewhere. So that would be also my experience in a country I never was in. For example, in the Ukraine, I was in Kyiv a few times, which is amazing. But then I was once invited to Ivano-Frankivsk. And I had no flight from Berlin or anywhere to Ivano-Frankivsk because I'm not sure if Ivano-Frankivsk had an airport. So I had to fly to Lviv, and I've driven from Lviv to Ivano-Frankivsk. So I've enjoyed the entire drive through the Ukrainian countryside. So pretty fun.
Now we definitely understand that you get prepared to the talk. Thank you.
There you go.
I never expected you will remember exact names of the towns in
Of course.
Ukraine. So
Of course,
Thank
Ivano-Frankivsk
you.
was a wonderful place. Ivano-Frankivsk is a wonderful place. I really enjoyed it. I've been only for a single night there, unfortunately, but I did enjoy my time there. The people are wonderful. They took me out to some amazing dinner. I had the traditional salo, right? Of course, you have to have salo, and yeah, I did really enjoy that.
Anton, I interrupted you.
Nope, not at all.
No. Darko, I would like to ask you, what kind of company, I would say, software development division of Amazon is? For example, when we are talking about, I would say, Apple, it's an office-based company. They have a big office, campus, and things like that. When we are talking, for example, much smaller but also pretty interesting company, Percona, I think you also should know this company.
Okay.
They are completely remote-based. And all people in Percona working from different countries, different time zones, and things like that. Actually, what kind of work Amazon had, and probably now has, and will have?
Yeah. Well, Amazon, at least the teams I worked for, we were very flexible when it comes to your working hours and locations where you work from. Of course, we had offices all over, and I did spend most of my time in the office before becoming a developer advocate. We had this very flexible way of working, and especially because it's such a small team, there's never a massive team. There's not a team of like 50 people. It's usually a team of, I don't know, 8 people, 2 pizza team, right? So we were flexible in before, and especially right now, right, with all this situation, we see people working, from home. Well, of course, but I also think that at one point people are just, I'm missing the office. I'm not for office sake. I'm missing the people. Like, there's nothing I enjoyed more than having that 2 shots of coffee with my colleagues in the morning next to the coffee machine, just to talk something not about work. So I am missing that, and I think companies that give you the freedom to work from home are the norm. I think it should be the norm, right? Like, for me, it's weird if you talk to a company and they're like, oh no, there's no home office. I think that in 2020 or even 2019, that's a weird thing to do. So as long as you have a team and a process and a methodology you work on that can enable people to work from home with all the benefits they can have, such as pair programming, collaboration, whatnot. I think those things are going to be the norm, and that's the thing in Amazon, right? That's what happens right now.
It's like some kind of hybrid approach. You can work from home, you can work from office.
Yeah.
But when you're working from home, you are not paid, right? Right?
No, of course, you give them your time. That's the way it works, right? You choose not to be paid. No. You, of course, you are paid. It's the same thing. The only problem about working from home, and let me give everybody here a piece of advice, try to limit your time. Try to say I'm actually working, because people get into this whirlpool of like, oh, I am at home, that means I can work all day because work is all around me. No, you have to at least like, oh, it's 6 p.m. I stop my work right now, because otherwise you will just go all over the place. So for both the people who work and the employers, for the employees and the employers, make sure to limit the time you work from home, because otherwise you will just get burned out and just work nonstop. And no.
I would say I completely agree with you. It's definitely could be a big problem to keep life-work balance, because when you're working from home, you like at home and you're working, and sometimes your family.
Exactly.
Saying, guys, you should stop.
Yep. Yeah, I fully agree. You have to be able to limit yourself. Otherwise you're gonna have, you and your family are gonna have a bad time.
Yes.
How do you collaborate with your colleagues whenever times come? And, well, I mean, you're in a position when you need to speak a lot to all your to your colleagues, basically. Yeah, you should have a lot of different meetings from time to time, but just right now it looks like it's just something like on remote calls, like first one and second one, but it's not really the same as you can meet someone in person and speak to him. So how do you deal with that? How do you cope with this right now in these times?
The personal touch. Exactly. The personal touch is something that there's no way in replicating. You cannot replicate on any camera or platform, no matter what you're doing. You cannot replicate the fact that you can talk to your colleague and have a drink with them or whatever, right? But one of the things we are doing is like, I find it's very important is that when you're talking to somebody online, even if it's your colleague or somebody else you have to help out with, whatever, use a camera. It makes things so much better, right? Like before Corona, before all of this, we would jump on a call, everybody would turn off their cameras and we would just talk to each other, right? Because we didn't have to see each other. But now when you really are missing to see somebody else, turning on our camera is something that's very important. Also, we have this thing where we have once a week, we have a team coffee every like a specific day of the week. We have a morning coffee where we talk about anything but work, right? So no work mentioned. It's just about what has happened, the banter. So it is really important to try and keep this collaboration with your colleagues outside of work topics important. So I think everybody should devote at least half an hour a week to talk to some of your colleagues about non-work related things.
So that explains why you're on your Twitch streams. You are just speaking about some different, like, close to work related stuff, but giving some tips and so on.
Yep.
So how long do you do that?
Like, so the Twitch stuff I've been doing, the Twitch stuff I've been doing since March. I think my first Twitch stream was on March 20 something. I've actually viewed it recently just to see how bad I was, and I was horrible. I didn't know how to do. I'm used to talking in front of people, and I can see your faces, I can see your reactions, I can do all that. But when you talk to people through the camera, I can just imagine that you're enjoying my talk or you're hating it. So I have to emphasize a lot of things. So I did it for the first time in March, and then slowly I got used to it. And you can see my streams. There are streams where I do something with myself, right? It's just me. But there's also streams I do with my buddy, friend, clone, whatever, my bearded brother, Kobus. Kobus is my colleague from South Africa. He basically looks the same like I do, and it's kind of meme. It became a meme right now. And we do this stream where we talk about some tech, we talk about AWS, but at the same time, we talk about, old computers, and we talk about some things that, let's talk about DevOps and, something not related to AWS. So it's pretty cool. It helps me keep in touch with Kobus pretty good. We are very close, and helps entertain people.
The next probably question, I would say, or provocation for me. We are running several conferences in Kyiv, and we are trying to see actually how doing the conferences, the giants I'm trying to use approaches and things like that. Also, we try to care about the diversity
Yes.
in terms of speakers and things like that. What kind of steps Amazon do to fit this, I would say, new concept, which I would say very good and justly.
When you say the new concept, do you mean diversity
Yes,
or online?
diversity.
Okay. Okay, absolutely. Well, so diversity is really important, and I like to talk about diversity, but not in a sense that like, oh, this is the right thing to do. It really is the right thing to do. It's you need different perspectives from people, not just from your own little bubble. Because if you just listen to people from your own little bubble, it will chamber, and you will say, just nod your head. Yep, that's the exact same way I think.
Exactly.
But that's not the best thing. So getting people who are coming from different backgrounds, different sexes, different countries, different ethnic groups, different races. This is where you get, oh, that person has it a bit different than I do. That person had a different experience entering this job market or this whatever than I did, right? I'm sure that people in some, better off countries had a better experience in becoming a developer, while, some other countries like my own, I had no chance to do something like an internship. I had to do it all myself. So by listening to somebody coming from a different, background, that helps a lot. And Amazon, we're trying to really nurture the ability to have anybody speaking, anybody who's competent, of course, who has a story to tell, who has something to bring to the table of value, and especially people coming from the diverse background. This is something we're trying to do. Of course, one of the things I'm trying to avoid, like if I get invited to a conference and everybody in conference is just a white male, I'm like, okay, buddy, like what's happening here? Like that's not the place I want to be in. Like I want to be represented with people who come from different places, right? I want to be people who have different experiences, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, say no to conferences which are just like that. At least that's one thing you can do as well.
Okay, thank you. Anton?
What do you think is the best or maybe the hottest feature or utility or something that was released by AWS recently in this year at least?
This
or
year,
maybe
okay,
not this one, but recently at least.
Recently,
what do you enjoy much at least out of those releases?
I enjoy CDK. CDK is the cloud development kit. It is the way you write infrastructure code, and I'm biased. I like doing that, right? I've enjoyed doing Terraform before, Terraform, and I've enjoyed doing CloudFormation before, but CDK is much closer to my heart. It's much easier to write. It's much more natural to me, especially if I write it in Python. So CDK is one of these big things that kind of has enabled a lot more people to do things in infrastructure as code, right? So before you would do things in CloudFormation, and like to create a simple VPC or a virtual private network, it would take you like 95 lines of code, right? To do it in CDK, you can do it in one line. So helps move things along quite better, helps make your code a bit more testable. And of course, you can create these chunks of code that are really reusable as you go down the line. So I would say if we're going to look in the past year or two, I would say CDK is one of my favorite features coming from AWS. And it's not even a service. It's just a tool that helps you handle other things. So that would be my big thing.
Yeah, I also heard that there recently was announced that CDK for Kubernetes and even CDK for Terraform.
Correct. So CDK for Kubernetes basically enables you to define and manage your Kubernetes clusters through CDK, which is basically you can use the languages supported. Now, I'm not sure what CDK for Kubernetes supports currently out of languages. I'm sure it supports JavaScript and TypeScript. I'm not sure what else does it support, but
Python perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like because not all of the languages are available for those two things. Like for example, CDK for Terraform, you can only do it in JavaScript/TypeScript, and I believe one more language. I believe in Python, and that's it. I think those two languages are currently unsupported for Terraform. But what's great about those things is that you have this common language or common set of languages, so which include JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, Java, C#, and you can use those languages to actually properly build the cloud. And I'm not saying AWS cloud. I'm saying the cloud, especially with Terraform support. You can actually deploy resources in Azure with CDK for Terraform, right? And CDK for Terraform was actually made by the lovely folks at HashiCorp, the people who built Terraform. So I think this is amazing that you can have these tools to manage your clusters, your AWS infrastructure, your, well, whatever Terraform supports, right? All of those, the massive array of things that Terraform supports. So hence, I'm a big fan of CDK. And when I speak about CDK, I always put the caveat that I'm biased. I really do like that service. I will always speak about it with a full heart. And I know its problems, and I know the things that can be better in CDK, but the folks at CDK are making it good as we speak. And it's open source.
Speaking of Kubernetes, why it could be, I mean, CDK for Kubernetes, why could it be better than, well, widely used Helm, for example, or Customize? Because those things, well, Helm at least, it more looks like a package manager for Kubernetes, but as I understand, the CDK for Kubernetes will just generate you the Helm objects, Helm template. So you will basically have a bunch of YAML files in the end. Basically, it will be almost the same as if you will generate them by any templating language of your choice. So how does it better than, well,
so I'm going to preface my answer with I don't know, because I don't know Kubernetes and Helm. But one of the things that CDK is addressing, especially when it comes to, well, Terraform and CloudFormation, is that it is actually generating CloudFormation. It is generating Terraform. It is generating Helm, right? So it helps you use a imperative, programmable approach. Instead of creating a bunch of YAML files or JSON files, you have this programmable, pluginable model where you can actually, like with CDK, you can create these things called constructs, which you can just kind of import and add things to that. For example, if you would like to, let's say, you create something on, like this applies, I would assume the same thing to Kubernetes, but I'm not really familiar with Helm, but I would imagine it's so, because hence why it exists.
Well, let's skip Helms and just Kubernetes manifests.
Okay, yeah. Again, it helps you kind of build reusable modules. Let's say you want to build a module that's like a monitoring module, right? Instead of having to write a bunch of YAML files over and over or configure bunch of YAML files with the monitoring part of it, you can create this single construct that you can just kind of reuse in every other thing you're using, right? For example, I will create a monitoring stack that creates a CloudWatch dashboard. And anytime I want to create an item on that dashboard, I will just include that construct in one of the objects, right? I wouldn't have to rewrite things in a YAML file. I would have to add things manually. I could just literally plug it in, and anybody else who wants to create the same dashboard or similar dashboard can just literally plug in that module. And when I say module, I literally mean a pip module or an npm module that you can just plug it in your application, your Kubernetes cluster, your Terraform stack, all of those things.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Yep. Also, testing.
Sure.
Testing is very important. Testing is important.
Well, unit tests are everything that we need.
Unit tests.
What we need.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly. And if you do things like with CDK, you can use Jest and assertion libraries to actually run assertions against your code. So that's very good.
that's basically because it's a fully featured programming language behind.
Yep. It produces out an artifact. It makes in CDKs, in like normal CDK, it produces CloudFormation. So basically, if you assert the validity or the contents of that language, basically the same thing you can do with your Kubernetes. It produces some YAML files if you have an assertion language, which Jest is, right? And you can basically just assert the outputs of those YAML files. Are they the things you want? So.
I have run out of questions and have no other provocations for you.
Okay,
you have.
I still have a few, yeah. But it's more some generic. So the cost optimization, it's something that really drives mad a lot of people because, well, AWS at least, it's costing, especially some services. So what are most generic tips, perhaps, on where can people just save their money or the budget? Besides spot instances, for example.
Yeah. Well, spot instances would be the default answer.
Obvious,
That's too obvious. Yeah. So if you're using EC2 instances, if you're using servers on AWS, try to use spot instances because they just cost less. But also, if you're using EC2 instances, if you're using servers on AWS, and you have a thing like, for example, you have a hosted Jenkins server, a server that will run forever, or forever. It will run for a long time, at least for a year or two. One of the things you can benefit from is reservations. So reservations can save you up to, I believe, up to 75% of the cost of an instance, especially have a fixed, like say, oh, I'm gonna be using this much server. This server will run for that amount of time. I don't have to scale it up or down. This is my fixed, consistent use, and this is where you can save a lot of money. Other part, instance types. Not all instance types are created equal. So when you come and you look at your, oh, this is the amount of RAM I have, this is the amount of CPU I have, yeah. Have you tried Graviton instances, ARM-based instances, right? The new ARM-based instances, you can get like 40% price over performance value out of ARM instances. So these are the M6G, 34G, C6G. Those are the instances that are basically running Graviton or ARM-based CPUs in them. And there's great examples by Honeycomb, I believe, yeah, Liz Fong. She wrote this amazing blog post how they've saved this bunch of money by going away from C6 instances to or M6, but basically by moving to the Graviton-based instances. Amazing, right? So that will be one thing when it comes to instances. Check out different instance sizes. They might be useful, right? And the third thing is, if you're keeping things in an S3 bucket, think about different tiers. There's different tiers of storage on S3 buckets, right? From standard storage to infrequent access to single zone to Glacier to deep Glacier. Like, you can actually change the price of keeping your data massively. And to do this, you actually need to do something like classify your data to see where your data actually needs to sit based on the cost. I actually worked with one customer once a few years back, and they were complaining that they had, I think, like 80,000 euros per couple of months in like a quarter on S3 costs, right? And it was just too much. And then we had to sit down and like, okay, so what is this thing you're keeping in S3? And it was just archive data. It was data they must have, but it's not something they use every day. They use it once every couple of months, maybe. And my question was like, why not move it to Glacier? And Glacier is our like long-term storage. They're like, well, it takes 12 hours to get the data back. And then the question was like, okay, so is that enough? How many times did you need that data faster than 12 hours? None. Okay. Basically, we managed to cut that cost from 80,000 euros to, I don't know, a couple of hundred euros, or I don't even remember the number, but it was like massively less. And they're like, we should have done this sooner. So yeah, classify your data and change data tier types. Also, use serverless.
Does that cheaper than everything else? I mean, well, it does have some drawbacks as well, because, well, when you are running serverless, basically all your code needs to be changed. The way how it launches. Exactly. So when I talk about serverless, I don't mean like, oh, let me just copy my application to serverless. Oh, when I say use serverless, I mean start using serverless. Move parts of your application, move parts of your stack to serverless applications, to Lambdas, to Cognito user pools, to DynamoDBs. Keep on changing your application because, your application evolves and you want to make it better. And the way to make it better is to keep on using services and features that, well, help you focus on the actual application and the code instead of doing everything else around it. So I think serverless applications, if done right, can be a massive amount of cost optimization within your application in the long run. But again, it's not just a lift and shift. You cannot copy your application to Lambda or whatever, and it just works. It takes some effort, of course, but hey, it's for the good cause.
That's all?
Well, for now.
For now?
I think that's all for today. So I would like to say, Darko, thank you for your time. Thank you for
gentlemen.
sharing your expertise, your humor.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, actually, one last
And,
question. Maybe you have something in your collections that you would like to show to everyone. Something very special. Well, besides that laptop, that's a really impressive thing.
Wait. I had something. I can show you something from my collection that's, well, not technology, but that's my Commodore 64. It's my main computer. That's, yeah, I have nothing here that I can just kind of flaunt. Unfortunately, I've removed all my stuff. I had one of those big 8-inch floppy disks, which
The
a
biggest
lot
one I
of people
seen
see.
was a 5-inch disc, yeah. But
Oh,
8 inches.
let me see.
Is it from
It's like
70s
an
or
8.
even-
It's like this. Yeah, it's like from the 80s. It's an 8-inch disc. I can show you one thing. Give me a second. And this is one of the things that kind of blows my mind right now. Give me 1 second. So a processor from 1995. Not so long ago, but it's a 100 megahertz processor. It's called an Intel Pentium Pro. It's massive. So like modern CPUs are much smaller. Like this thing, you can fit a Raspberry Pi. You can fit almost 3 Raspberry Pis onto this CPU. So yeah, this is one of the old CPUs I used a long time ago. So yeah, it's a whopping 100 megahertz or 133 megahertz from 1995.
Yeah, we could
So,
run a lot
yeah.
of things. Well, back in the
Oh,
days.
back then, I even have the motherboard for this processor. It actually came in one of the Hewlett Packard Vectra PCs, and it had a motherboard with 2 CPU sockets. So you can plug 2 of these in and have dual core or dual CPU. Proper workstation from 1995. Yeah.
So, bye.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. Bye bye.